So the question this year, it really feels right to say that we aren't the most diverse group of librarians that are presenters today, but we feel that these books are valuable and the children that we serve are valuable. And so we are advocating for all of us to buy and use and enjoy and love and find joy in books that reflect the identities of all the kids who come into our libraries. So before we start with our book talks, I wanted to talk for a minute about the value of the ALA Youth Media Awards, because this is something that really helps me out every year. And my first example is, you know, when this book, Not So Different by Shane Burkhaw was published, I might have overlooked it, but it won it won a Schneider Award, honor and a Cybert Award. And I bought it for the library, and I teach this book every year because, and every time I stick this book on a cart and roll it into the third grade, it gets checked out. And it's such a great window into the life of someone who has such a very different experience than me. And I'm so grateful that, that I have this book in the library for everyone to use. The other thing that is so awesome, my colleagues, about being a school librarian is that not only are we in a position to really be of authentic use to our students and to share books with our students that touch them and reach them, but every once in a while you get the opportunity to help a teacher upgrade their class reads. And so our fourth grade is reading, just finished reading actually Indian No More, which was last year's American Indian Youth Literature Award winner. And they were, the fourth grade team was kind of feeling that their curriculum books didn't really speak to what they wanted at that time. And they felt like it was time for an upgrade. And so, or an update. And so we talked about various options, and they settled on Indian No More. And they've just been so happy. And these quotes from these kids who read it have been so beautiful and moving to me. This year, we are focusing on book joy in our presentation. So these are books that make us happy, make us joyful, make us proud. And what is more fun than, what brings more happiness than prizes? So if you'd like to enter a prize drawing, we're going to give away 3 books to 3 different people. And so what you want to do is just put your work email in the chat. And then after the session's over, I'm going to just do like an old-fashioned drawing with pieces of paper, and then I'll email you. And what you win is you win your choice of whatever book from the presentation you want, mailed from Amazon right to your library. So yay! And now we're going to start our book talks. So what we do is we each take turns, and this time we're spending. Everybody gets 9 books, and mine are all coming up. And the first book I want to talk about is The Old Truck by Texas brothers Jared and Jerome Pumphrey. And this is a sweet, nostalgic look at a farm truck and its family through time. And it just makes me happy and sigh because it's so lovely and such a nice warm tone. Another book that makes me go, oh, is Our Subway Baby. And this book profiles a dad and who finds a man who finds a baby in a subway and gives it to social services. And then the 2 dads end up adopting the baby. And every time I read this, I close the book with a delighted sigh. And this is informational, it's a nonfiction book. I also really love Harlem Grown, How One Big Idea Transformed a Neighborhood by Tony Hillary, who's actually the person who had this idea to take an abandoned lot across from a school in Harlem and make it into a farm garden. And one thing I love about this book is the beautiful illustrations by Jesse Hartland. And another thing I like about this book is that Mr. Tony, he didn't really know how to grow vegetables at the beginning. And so, you know, he learned, like when one of them didn't work out, he planted something else and learned from his experience.
Heather,
Yes.
there's a request in the chat room. If you could please say the age level appropriate for the books you're sharing.
Do you know what? We actually have that for you in the handout. So I should have said on the SCED website, we uploaded PDF of the presentation and our handout. And our handout is just the title and the author, and then our age recommendations. About half of them are our personal recommendations, and half of them are from novelists. And then there's like a place to take notes. So if you want to pull that up, that is for you. But this, does that work for you? Does that sound good? Okay.
That's great.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Liz. This is nachos, because who does not love nachos? And I had never thought of them as having had an inventor, but they were actually created by Ignacio Anaya, a beloved waiter at the Victory Club in Piedras Negras, Mexico in 1940. And this book is the story of how. This book, William Still and His Freedom Stories, the Father of the Underground Railroad, written and illustrated by Don Tate, who's actually speaking opposite us in this session. So I am going to go back and watch that recording. This is one of the most inspiring books I've read all year. It's the story of William Still, who worked tirelessly to reunite Black families who were separated by slavery. And so what he did was he took their stories and used his superpower of being able to write and literacy to capture stories of people who were separated and then reunite them. And the end paper is actually reproduces in his own, in the handwriting of William Still, which is sort of a precious historical treasure. And this book just makes me so happy and proud that there were people who worked so hard to improve the lives of others. I really love Charuco, el arqueólogo peruano, Peruvian archaeologist Julio Citeo. It's a story of someone who developed a passion for his country's history as a child, and then who grew up to be the first indigenous Peruvian archaeologist. And what I love about this book and what brings me special joy, you can kind of see it in the cover here, is that the illustrations really convey Teo's joy in discovery. And that is such a beautiful thing to pass on to a child, that capacity for intellectual enjoyment and delight. And my favorite part of the book, my very, very favorite part of the book, is the last sentence, which is, and now Peruvians tell their own stories. This is Anya and the Dragon and Anya and the Nightingale by local author Sophia Pasternak. And these are sweet fantasy novels with a medieval Russian setting. They take place about 1,000 years ago. I guess that's not, is that medieval? No, I can't remember. But what I love about these is that there's they're warm and delightful, and there's Jewish books that are about fun and magic and not about the Holocaust. And the local Sophia Pasternak lives in Draper, and if you could get her to come to your school, I'm sure everyone would really enjoy it. I could not stop myself from talking about all 13. I know Danae is like this. So I tried to pick books that were not recognized with cyber awards or honors, because I served on that committee this year and it seemed somewhat self-indulgent, but I could not stop myself from talking about this book. So in 2018, the world watched as 12 young soccer players and their coach were trapped underground when the karst cave they were going to explore flooded. They planned to hike for a couple hours, and they ended up there for many, many days as the whole country of Thailand and the world banded together to rescue them and get them all out. And every time I go into class and talk about this book, we have to do a little review about how to place a hold, because it gets checked out like that. So fun. And my last book I'm going to talk about today is One Real American, The Life of Eli S. Parker, Seneca Sachem, and Civil War General by Joseph Bruchac. And this book brought me joy because although my undergrad degree is like social science education, I had never heard of the Civil War General Eli Parker, who stood at General Grant's right hand at Appomattox and was Native American. And this book tells that story, but it also tells the story of his whole life and how he tried so many professions. He must have had a huge intellectual gifts, and then often he would get a setback because he wasn't allowed to pursue the law or engineering because of racism, and he persisted, and he really walked between two worlds, his Native American and the larger culture. So I just thought it was really fascinating to see that. And now I'm going to hand off to my colleague, Lisa Grant from the City Library for 9 more book talks.
My first pick is called I Am Darn Tough, and this is a delightful picture book. I don't know that you can all see it, but here we go. It is about a girl. We don't ever know her name, but we know she's getting ready with friends to run a race. And we know that she falls down and gets a bloody knee, and she gets back up, and she climbs a really high hill, and she's exhausted, and she gets a cramp in her side, and she keeps going. And this was my manager brought this to our attention at the children's department at the main library. He has two young girls, third grade and kindergarten, and he said they were so empowered by this book. And the illustrations are just a delight and full of action and emotion. And I don't know that you can see this, but I'm going to do it anyway. But this spread is just, it's just, she's so determined. She won't give up. And so, and in our department, after we all read this book, that was our line. If we were frustrated about something or nervous about something, we would just say to each other, I am darn tough. It's a delightful read. And then the next book is called The Moose of Ewenke. And this is about a herder named Grishek. He lives in the mountains of Mongolia. And this is about a kind of disappearing tradition from these reindeer herders that still exist today. And it starts out where Grishek is going out hunting for moose, and he shoots a mama moose who is not supposed to have young at the time at the season that it is. And all of a sudden he shoots the mom. And also this is like mind-boggling that this isn't a picture book, but it's so powerful. So this obviously is not for preschoolers or early elementary. But and then this moose that he calls Jihan, this little baby moose follows him back to his camp and sleeps in his tent and eats his food and becomes a part of his life for the next 6 years. It's such a beautiful story. It's silly. It's also a tearjerker. And if anybody out there has read it or will read it, please get my email because I need to talk to people about it because it's just one of those books that just sticks with you and lots of questions. And the illustrations are beautiful, watercolor, ink, charcoal. Anyway, a delightful read. And now on to Diamond Daniel, Make Way for Diamond Daniel. This is a series. There are 4 in the series so far. It's not a new book. Typically, we like to bring you the newest things, but it was new to me, and I just fell in love with Diamond. And it's early chapter books. She's a 3rd grader. She's moving to a new city or a new part of New York City with her mom. Her parents are just newly divorced, and she's trying to get her wits about her in her new place, the new neighborhood, the new teacher. And in the first book in the series, there's a new boy who comes into the class who is grumpy as all get out. All he does is grunt at people. And she wants to find out why. And she is just not afraid of anything. And she makes friends with Free. And it's just a delight, positive, and a hoot. You will fall in love with her. I guarantee it. All right. And then on to something completely different. Love Your Body. It's a book about self-care. It's the illustrations are so fantastic. The author Jessica Sanders has really embraced like we only get one body in this life, so what are we going to do with it? You know, like let's not be an enemy to it, and take care of it and celebrate it. And all different size girls are represented, different religious backgrounds and differently abled, and it is so beautiful. And it's very short and has just these lovely little things to really think about your body and what it can do for you, and to have those positive affirmations about it. And what I love, this is the first time I've ever seen an illustration in a children's book where girls that have underarm hair, they show their leg hair, and they show stretch marks. And I'm like, absolutely, this is so fantastic. I think it would be really wonderful for girls 2nd grade and up. It might be a little bit mature. It does talk about puberty a little bit, but oh my gosh. And at the end, it has resources for if you are having mental health issues or maybe an eating disorder or something like that. So it's a delight and empowering. And now on to Boys Dance. American Ballet Theater presents Boys Dance. And this is just a rollicking good time. As you can see from the cover, that boys dance, boys move ballet is for them. It's for everyone. It's just fun rhyming text, and the illustrations are just kind of irresistible. And at the end, which I found really delightful, was there were, I think, maybe 8 dancers from American Ballet Theater that are show a photograph of them when they're boys, and dancing, and then also a photograph of them when they are in their ballet costumes and performing, and then a little summary of how what their path was to dance. So it's just a delightful read. And on to Exquisite, which, what more need I say? Gwendolyn Brooks' words, the illustrations, rich acrylics, and it starts out with Gwendolyn Brooks as a young girl and her path to loving words and poetry, and she she lived through the Great Depression. Her father, it was hard for them in the beginning or during, where his salary was cut in half, and they had beans for dinner night after night. But what fed her was her love of language and words, and the greatest treasure in their home was a bookshelf full of poetry books. And it is just it's a beautiful picture book biography. I can't say enough great things about it. She was also the first Black American to win a Pulitzer Prize for poetry. So Exquisite, you will love it. And Twins, this is such a delightful graphic novel about Maureen and her sister Francine, and they are starting middle school, 6th grade, and they're identical twins. They have done everything together. They share a room with twin beds. They have always been in the same class and are just the best of friends. And then 6th grade hits, and Francine, who is the one on the left with a ponytail, she is ready for some changes. She doesn't always want to be connected. She's ready to her sister, and she changes her name from Francine to Fran. And Maureen is the quieter one. Her parents say that, oh, she's the thinker, and then Francine is the talker. And they have these identities that they're not sure are the right fit for them. And then it turns out that they're 6th graders, and they are both running for class president. Oh my gosh. And the illustrations are such a delight. Shannon Wright, that they're a lot of fun. Okay, what's next? When You Trap a Tiger, I realized this won the Newbery and the Asian Pacific Award for Literature, but I just had to mention it yet again because it is such a tender, touching story of family dynamics, being a sister. This is about Lily. She and her sister Sam and her mother are moving from from California to Washington to live with their Halmoni, their grandmother, Korean grandmother. And she is a storyteller. The Halmoni, the grandmother, you will fall in love with her. She's such a delight. It's a wonderful interweaving of kind of magical realism and the reality of life and navigating a lot of emotional stuff. Okay, last but not least, what do we have? This is a series called A Kid's Book About, and the 2 books just the one I'm going to talk about really quick is a kid's book about systemic racism. They're nonfiction, and they are filled with conversation about some very difficult topics. And I so appreciate the design of the book. It has a lot of white space. It just kind of invites conversation. So I can't say enough great things about this series that is nonfiction and invites conversation. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. I am so excited to be here today and to talk to you about books, because I really don't know why conversation exists if you can't talk about books. Okay, so I am an elementary school librarian in a K through 6 school. And I don't know about you guys, but I have readers that sports is their life. And if they can't read about sports, then why read at all? So my first 2 books are about sports, basketball in particular. Above the Rim, How Elgin Baylor Changed Basketball. Long before Michael Jordan sailed across the courts, Elgin Baylor is the one that took the sport to the air and changed this stodgy sport of men running back and forth and shooting into peach baskets to this aerial event. And long before Colin Kaepernick took a knee, Elgin Baylor stood up for his human rights when he refused in 1958 to dress up for a game, which many people had paid to come and see this fabulous player, because he had not been allowed into the restaurants and the hotels in the area. And my next book is also basketball. Jean Luen Yang's graphic novel, Dragon Hoops, it's part thrilling sports saga following a high school team to the California State Finals, where hopefully they will finally walk away with the championship. It's part Ken Burns type basketball documentary where you will learn about things you never thought you wanted to know about basketball that are fascinating. And it's a part in-depth character study of each of these diverse players. This is labeled for young adult. It was a Prince Honor book. I have it at my school. It never sits on the shelf. The kids do know there's some language in it, and I share with them that if they're not comfortable with that, it might not be the best book for them. But there are so many fans of my students. And it's also for people who hate sports, because I could care less about basketball and it fascinated me. Okay, next we have an early chapter book, Planet Omar, Accidental Trouble Magnet. This book is a heavily illustrated, early entry novel for younger readers. It's adorable. Omar's family has just moved to a new home in London, and he's going to have to go to a new school, and his teacher is a zombie alien, and there is a big mean bully at his school who has told him that all the Muslims are going to be like him are going to be kicked out of the country soon. This is a little bit pre-Brexit. His cousin, who is also Muslim, has backed up this story, and so Omar's terrified. Then he finds himself and the big bad bully in a tenuous situation in the heart of London, and the rescue is just sublime. I always love books that show kids of faith, because I have a student body that is very religious, and they can understand why the people you go to church with are a big part of your life. Next, we have the graphic novel Snapdragon. Our town has a witch. She fed her eye to the devil, and she eats roadkill and casts spells with the bones. That's the kind of bull the dumb kids at my school say. Witches ain't real, but they say she also eats pets. That's the beginning. This book is surprise after surprise. It's one of the best plotted books I've read in the last few years. There's so many surprises around the corner. Yes, it has a diverse cast. I believe Snap is mixed race. There's trans and queer characters, but it's not like the trans book or the queer book. It's just integrated into it. Snap and her neighbors are unapologetically lower class. They live in a trailer park. They're not sad about it. We have students that live those lives. It's just a fact of life. This is one of the most crazy and unexpected stories I've read. It's fabulous. Okay, next, speaking of witches in your life, The Total Eclipse of Nestor Lopez. Nestor is not new to moving. His father is in the service, and he's moved many times in his young life. But in his new town, the pets are going missing, and there are whispers that his abuela is a witch, and she is the cause of these animal disappearances. But Nestor has a secret. He can talk to animals, and they can talk to him, and he's getting a team together to prove his abuela is not the witch that is responsible for this, but they are going to go up against the witch that is responsible for this. Now, as Heather said earlier about the awards, if this book hadn't won a Belpré honor, I may not have found it. It is, but I'm so excited to give it to my kids because they are going to go nuts for it. Next, we have A Wish in the Dark. Speaking of books that have won honors, this was a Newbery honor this year. Same author as Heather's All 13, which also won a Newbery honor as well as a Seibert honor. I didn't read this till like the weekend of the awards, and if I'd read it earlier, I wouldn't have shut up about it. This is a fantasy based on like Thai culture, um, and also the novel Les Miserables. Pong is born into prison, and he's considered a criminal because he was born in prison. His mother was a prisoner who died right after his birth. He does not want to stay in prison, and so he buries himself in garbage and escapes downriver, falls in with a group of monks, and then shows back up, and this fate takes him back to the city years later, where he falls in with a group of revolutionaries that is trying to demand justice for this unequal society that has been created. And next we have another fantasy, The Good Hawk. This is an alternate reality set in medieval Scotland, starts on the island of Skye. Agatha is probably my favorite super action hero in a long time. She is brave. She is confident in her abilities. Although we get the sense that other people see her very differently. It's never explicitly explained because this medieval culture wouldn't have had the words, but Agatha has Down syndrome. She is also an asset to the people that she cares about. And when her clan is taken captive, she and the only other member of the clan left, Jamie, go on a quest to save them. I can't wait. This is a trilogy. I can't wait to read the rest. I felt very much Lloyd Alexander-ish, like I did the first time I read The Chronicles of Prydain. And then From the Dusk of Zoe Washington, I tell you, my students can't get enough of this book. This has been the word of mouth book of my 5th and 6th graders this year. Zoe has just turned 12. That means she can finally apply to go on the Food Network's Kids Baking Challenge, although her parents aren't quite sure she's ready for it. Also on her 12th birthday, she discovers a card from her birth father in the mail, whom she has never met because he has been in prison since before she is born. Her mother has never allowed contact with him. She starts to develop a relationship with him. She assumes he's guilty of murder because he's in prison. And eventually she has to decide if she wants to try to be an advocate for him. At the same time, she's trying to perfect the perfect cupcake recipe. It is a great middle school book. It has social justice issues, but it does not feel like this hard social justice saga. It's very accessible to our students. And finally, speaking of fathers in prison, this has been billed as The Hate You Give meets Just Mercy. This is My America. The characters are all set in high school, but it's billed for 12 years and up. So it's not quite as gritty, although there's murder in it. I love that Alan Gratz gave me the term for this book. It is a social thriller. I thought, oh my gosh, another social justice book. Okay, deep breath. But it just turned out to be this great mystery as Tracy Beaumont tries to get her father proved innocent, who is on death row, and then her brother gets accused of a murder. And it just becomes this white knuckle, nail biting thriller. I think any student that likes sort of action adventure books is going to really enjoy this. So that's my time. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn you over to the lovely and elegant Von Vu.
Good morning. So I'm Fung Vu, and I'm a librarian with Salt Lake County Libraries. And these are some of the books that have brought me joy. First up is When We Are Kind. And this is a very simple picture book. It looks at what it means to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, how it feels when you receive kindness, and also the message that kindness connects all of us as people. And you can see from the cover here that a family is sitting in a drum circle. Both the author and illustrator are from Indigenous backgrounds, and that is featured throughout this text. There are references to being kind to your elders, to the earth. There are images of traditional Navajo hairstyles, clothing, and patterns. I picked up the copy that's bilingual, that's in English, and then Dene, which is in Navajo. I think it's just a beautiful book to share. Okay, next up is Going Up. This is such a delightful picture book. You see cute Sophie here. She and her dad are going to a birthday party for a neighbor that lives in their apartment building, and they live on the first floor. And they are riding the elevator to the 10th floor of where the party room is. And as they're riding the elevator, it seems to stop on every floor to pick up more neighbors that are going to the same party. And it's just a lot of fun to meet eclectic neighbors, and they see them all squeeze into this tiny elevator. Some of my favorite neighbors are the Santucci brothers. They're a couple of biker dudes with cat tattoos. There's the Habibs that are a senior couple that are going to the party with their grandchildren that are dressed up in superhero costumes. Guest of honor, the birthday girl, was a bit of a surprise for me. This is such a fun story to share in story times. You can practice counting with kids. You can have the kids help you with refrain of going up and with the elevator dinging. It's just been so much fun to read. Okay, Eyes That Kiss in the Corners. This is probably my most favorite picture book of 2021 so far. It's a book about self-love and acceptance. It's about a young Asian girl, she's Taiwanese, and she notices that her eyes are quite different from her classmates, that she doesn't have big round eyes and she doesn't have long lashes. In fact, her eyes kiss in the corners and they glow like warm tea. And I think that's such a beautiful way to describe Asian eyes. I wish someone would have described my eyes that way when I was growing up. It would have really helped with my self-esteem. Anyway, this young girl, she starts to become proud of her eyes when she realizes that her younger sister has the same eyes. She shares the same eyes with her grandmother, and that beauty is not just on the surface. There's also strength. The illustrations celebrate cultural Asian heritage. The illustrator is Vietnamese in Vietnam. I'm just so happy this book is available to Asian kids, especially for kids like my daughter. Okay, next up, The Most Beautiful Thing. So this is a picture book memoir. It's based on the author's true experience as a Hmong refugee that was living in Thailand, and then her family immigrated to America. And this young girl talks about her grandmother, a woman who is so old that nobody knows her true age, and a woman who still smiles proudly. She only has one tooth, and she's gone through so many hardships in life. She's been an orphan, she's had to forage for food, she's had to take care of younger siblings. So Kalia really struggles with growing up in poverty in the States. And when she asks for braces that her family can't afford, it's her grandmother who reminds her of what's most beautiful. And I really enjoyed this book because there aren't very many picture books that feature Hmong families. And I think the textures and patterns that reflect the Hmong culture are done in such a beautiful way. Okay, The Magnificent Makers. This is a new STEM chapter book series for early readers. It's so much fun. So the author is a woman of color, and she's got a PhD in neuroscience, and she calls herself a brain doctor. And she wrote these books to kind of share her love for science, for teaching science, and for storytelling. And these books, I think, are just, they have so much kid appeal. They're light, they're easy to read, they introduce science and really easy to understand concepts. The science is accurate, there are STEM activities, very diverse and likable characters. You can see on the covers here that we've got third graders and best friends, Violet and Pablo. They share a love for science and adventure. There's Miss Crisp in the corner with rainbow hair and purple pants. So enter a makerspace. It's called a maker maze. It's a science makerspace where they have to complete a number of challenges and build something before a certain time period. Yeah, I just think it's really fun. There are 3 books in the series right now, and the 4th book comes out this fall. Okay, next, Second Dad Summer. Okay, so I picked up this book on a whim, and I'm so glad I did. We meet Jeremiah. He's 12. His parents are divorced, and he typically spends the summers with his dad. But he's not looking forward to this summer because of Michael. You can see him on the cover. Michael is his dad's live-in boyfriend, and Jeremiah just doesn't know what to make of him. He's just super flamboyant. He doesn't understand his love for organic foods. He doesn't understand why he's riding a bike that looks like a unicorn. Michael is just so different from his dad. And throughout the summer, we kind of go on this journey with Jeremiah as he starts to learn about a lot of sensitive topics. And the book treats him really ways. So Jeremiah starts to think about what it means to be part of a family, what friendship is, what masculinity is. He looks at pride and tolerance and acceptance. I think this book, it's written by a librarian too, which is fun. I like that the format is really accessible. It's a little bit larger than regular chapter books. The font is a little bit larger as well, and there's some fun line drawings. I think it just has a lot of really important topics, and I think it will appeal to a lot of kids. Okay, next up, Once Upon an Eid. So this is a collection of short stories about Eid. There are 2 Eid holidays that Muslims celebrate throughout the year. And I think this is a really strong book, like what Danae said about kids seeing their faith reflected in books, because it's a big part of who they are, their identities. And this is a great book for kids that are Muslim, not just in America. There are also stories about Muslim kids from other countries. But it's a great window book for those of us that learn more about Eid, about how and why these holidays are celebrated, and about the traditions and customs. This book has a number of different short stories. There are lots of narratives. There's a graphic story. There's a novel or a story in verse. Lots of different types of stories to kind of keep you interested in the stories flowing. It also shows how rich the diversity is within the Muslim community. You've got Muslims with Asian backgrounds, African backgrounds, Middle Eastern backgrounds. You've got a family that's blended, another family that's a recent convert to Muslim. I really think the subtitle of stories that contain hope and joy, that really is reflected in these stories. Okay, Any Day with You. This book is about a Filipino-American family living in California. And the young girl, her name is Kaya. She's 12, and 4th generation Filipino-American. And I just think it's really important that kids see that not all Asians are immigrants or recent refugees, that, you know, some of us have been here for many generations. Anyway, this young girl has a really special bond with her great-grandfather. He's 90, and she calls him Tatang. And he teaches her a lot about her Filipino culture and Filipino mythology, and about her family history. And she is heartbroken when she learns that her Tatang is planning to move back to the Philippines after living in the US for 60 years. So she plots with her art camp friends to create a short film, and they're going to enter it in a contest. And they hope that by winning, they'll persuade Tatang to stay in America. I just really like it. It was a fun book. Okay, my very last book is called The Magic Fish, and it's a graphic novel for teens, for older readers. And it's so different from other graphic novels I've read. It weaves a number of different stories and seem to be color-coded. So the stories that take place in present day are red, and stories that take place in the past or memories are brown. And then fairy tales that the family in the story shares are in blue. So on the cover, we meet Din, and he is 13. He's a child of Vietnamese immigrants. He speaks mostly English. His parents speak mostly Vietnamese, and he really struggles with how to tell him that he's gay. He and his family have kind of a tradition of sharing fairy tales. And as you know, throughout the world, there are lots of fairy tales that are similar and lots of variations. And as they share stories, he and his mother especially, they start to really connect, and it brings up a lot of powerful memories and emotions and thoughts. You can kind of see in the background here, the fairy tales are illustrated in such great detail, shows a lot of Vietnamese culture and heritage. It's a very powerful book. It's just well written. I've had to read it a couple of times, and each time I've read it, I've discovered something new. I think it's just really striking. So these are my 9 picks, and thank you for listening. I hope you pick up one of them and give them to a child, to a student.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So as a reminder for those who stepped in late, we are giving away 3 prize books. So all you want to do is put your work email in the chat, and we will I'm going to do it old school, write your name on a piece of paper, and then I'll email you if you've won, and you can pick your choice of whatever book that you'd like from our presentation, and it will be Amazon mailed to you at your library. So here we are. This is our contact information. And just a reminder, we have handouts that have all the book titles and authors, as well as our grade level and age recommendations, and on the conference website, as well as a copy of this presentation so that you can have that. And we welcome it when you email us or let us know, reach out to continue the conversation. So we have a little bit of time left, I think, for questions before we end on time at 9:45. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Liz, is there anything in the chat that we can talk about?
Not at this time. Just a great appreciation for sharing the great books.
Well, that's lovely to hear. Can I just say I'm so honored that so many of you chose to spend this time with us when there's so many other sessions going on, and I really feel grateful that you chose to come to our session out of all the great offerings that are out there. And I'm excited to draw the prize winners.
Lots of appreciation, really helpful, great selection of books. Someone said that their list just doubled. Their book list just doubled. So thank you.
Well, I think we'll just hang out till 9:45, and which is just a couple minutes. So if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself, or a comment, feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat.
I have a question for Danae. What was the name of the basketball book, the graphic novel basketball book? I wasn't able to write that one down.
Okay, it was Dragon Hoops by
Great.
Jean Luen Yang. Dragon.
Thank you.
And Heather made a great handout. I'm sure people smarter than me will be able to find it.
I'll look for it.
It's right there on the I don't know how to pronounce that, shed or sked or whatever, on the sked. I uploaded it and I tested it today, so you should be able to get that. But if you can't, shoot me an email, hnovotny@mcgillisschool.org, and I'll email you a copy.
And I'll give you Heather's personal phone number. You can call.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
Amanda
here for you, my friends.
Amanda asks a question. Have you ever had parents upset about some of the diverse titles, and how do you respond?
Well, I'm also on several intellectual freedom committees, so I'll take this one. I first let them know I'm on their side. I let them know that I'm sorry they had a situation that didn't work for them. And I try to be genuinely concerned as they are about their child. I think if you start with that and you're not fake about it, that's a good place to start. But then I explain I need to have a wide variety of books for the children that attend our school. I can't just show what will upset the least people. We've certainly got protocols in place if they want to keep their own kids from certain materials, but we can't center our collection around just a few individuals. And most parents are okay to hear that. I don't know, I know other people haven't been as lucky, but I have had several semi-uncomfortable conversations, but we usually walk out of it pretty happy together. So I hope that helps. I have to go off and set up for Candace Fleming. So if some of you want to see me there, otherwise I'm happy not to be seen anywhere. But Candace Fleming is awesome and you won't have to look at me that much. Okay, so thank you everybody. I'm going to say goodbye.
Bye, Danae. Well, thank you everyone for attending this session, and feel free to reach out to these amazing librarians and enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you all for coming.